So how should India react? How do we navigate the shifting tides of power and security in an uncertain world? From grand strategy to military technology, and from power and conflict to the unseen forces shaping our world, and from battlefields to the halls of power, we decode the past, analyze the present, and anticipate the future of global security. I am Sandeep Unnithan, and this is the National Security Agenda. China has unveiled a new powerful deep-sea cable cutter. This deep-sea cable cutter is developed by the China Ship Scientific Research Center and the State Laboratory of Deep-Sea Manned Vehicles. This device targets armored cables on which 95% of global data transmission travels on. Now, these developments come at a time when both China and Russia have demonstrated their ability to sever cables in waters around them. What does this mean for India, which has no cable repair or cable laying ship, and which is extremely vulnerable to internet disruption? India hosts 17 international subsea cables that connect through 14 landing stations located in cities like Mumbai, Chennai, Cochin, Tuticorin, and Trivandrum. Mumbai and Chennai have the highest concentration of submarine cable landing stations. How vulnerable are these undersea cables on which India's digital infrastructure rests on? Joining me to discuss this are Rear Admiral Monty Khanna, former member of the National Security Council Secretariat, and Commander Arnab Das, founder and director of the Maritime Research Center. Gentlemen, welcome to the National Security Agenda.
Thank you.
Commander Das, how significant is this capability that China has unveiled, and why, to your mind, do you think that the Chinese have chosen to reveal this at this juncture?
Okay, thank you. It's a very important question. I mean, allow me a minute or two to look at the whole sequence of Chinese capability building. If you look at early part of this century, in 2000, the Americans announced what is called the Asia X. This was a shallow water acoustic measurement exercise in the South China Sea and the East China Sea. China willingly participated in this, knowing fully well that the Americans are there to collect data of their part of the world. But if you see, post that, in 2015, the Chinese announced what is called the Underwater Great Wall Project. Now, this was again, announcement by the Chinese that they have these underwater capabilities, and now they are, and they also reflected the belligerence. If you remember the first Trump era, in 2016 onwards, after the announcement of the Underwater Great Wall Project, the whole, confrontation in the name of freedom of navigation and all that happened in the entire Trump era in the beginning, in the first Trump era. But now, again, that's also a strategy by the Chinese that, for almost 30 years before the Underwater Great Wall Project, they were very quiet and developing the capabilities. But now they are coming out in the open. But also one needs to understand, when they say they have this underwater cable cutter capability, it is not a very simple thing. It has taken them definitely a few decades to build these kind of capabilities. And, it starts right from the sensing abilities, right from the platform abilities to access those depths, having the maneuverability to conduct such high precision activities. So a whole lot of activities have gone behind building this capability. So, and this has come at a time, if you just go through that report, when the rivals, the US capabilities are at the low, and even the Japanese, the research ship which had deep access capabilities are also, in the verge of being decommissioned, and the next one is yet to be even announced. So this is a time when, the Chinese felt this is important to, announce their capability, and hope that this will act as a deterrence across various other, national security activities.
Absolutely. China hiding its strength and biding its time and choosing to reveal these capabilities at a time and place of its choosing. But, Admiral Khanna, what are the kind of capabilities India needs to put into place to prevent these kind of attacks if they were to occur in the future?
So insofar as we are concerned, our biggest problem is that so far we don't have a domestic cable repair ship. in the first place. Cable laying is the next stage, but we don't even have a domestic cable repair ship. So we have, in fact, a large number of, I think, 4 or 5, domestic players who are heavily invested into internet cables. And what they do is that there are two consortiums. I think one, if I'm not mistaken, is Singapore-based and one is Dubai-based, where these cable operators, you take Geo, you take Airtel, etc., they have signed up long-term contracts which run into maybe a couple of years or several years with these consortiums, that in the event that they have an incident, a ship will come from there and repair it. Now, this is fraught, with delays because firstly, the ship has to be available at that particular time. It should not be, doing something else. Security clearance for the crew, etc. So you're talking about a downtime that can go into months at times before a cable is ready. Critical for us to have our own cable repair ship. And actually, this work on this project, to the best of my knowledge, started maybe a year and a half back, where several meetings have been held with with industry as well as with the in the Ministry of Telecom to try and identify as to how we obtain this capability. It's a little complex. It's a little specialized. Where do we acquire the ship from? Who's going to man it? Who's going to run it? How is it going to be maintained? What will the cost sharing arrangement be with the various cable operators? So this is all work already underway. And I'm quite sure in a short span of time, at least, we should have our own cable repair ship. So that's the first requirement. Next, of course, will be cable laying, where we can have our own cable laying ship. Yeah.
Commander Das, we have the perfect example of maritime awareness on the surface. The Indian Navy has that capability now to track ships in near real time. But what is underwater domain awareness and what should we be doing about it? Is that our Achilles heel?
Yeah, I think it's very important. I mean, firstly, we must recognize the tropical characteristics, in the Indian Ocean and even in the larger Indo-Pacific, where the whole strategic community wants to engage today. The underwater sonar capabilities degrade by about 60%. So any underwater surveillance has to be done in a very different way, and has to be a lot more effort to mitigate the tropical characteristics. Now, if you look at China, or even let me talk about this MH370, that is a very perfect example to explain, what kind of capabilities we are talking about. When they had to deploy AUVs for searching MH370 in the southern Indian Ocean, where presumably it was there or whatever, so there it took them 1 year to build the charts of the right resolution to even deploy AUVs. So as part of the larger underwater domain awareness, you have to build this in a strategic manner so that, when the actual tactical requirement comes, you are fully prepared. Now, you can see, in the Indian Ocean, the Chinese have been sending their research ships and, building those underwater capabilities. Now, this is a hardcore military requirement we are talking. Even for something like underwater search and recovery, we had an unfortunate incident where aircraft fell into the water or a submarine was lost in the seas. Now, to initiate the underwater search and recovery, you will not be able to do it if you do not have the right kind of underwater domain awareness or the right kind of charts with the resolution for deploying AUVs. So it requires a very different paradigm to build such capabilities. And to give you the example of USS in Connecticut, which met with an accident, went and hit a seamount in South China Sea. Imagine a nuclear submarine from the US Navy. This is the challenge of the tropical waters. So we have to look at it very differently, and particularly today, when we want to participate in the Indo-Pacific strategic space, these capabilities are extremely important, and it won't come, just by buying some hardware or, deploying certain things. It requires, a sustained effort of few decades. So that's something we need to really kind of understand.
Sustained effort of a few decades for us to map our underwater domains around India especially. But, coming to you, Admiral Khanna, which Indian agency or agencies do you think should be responsible for the safety of India's undersea cables, given how critical they are for India's internet infrastructure?
So, I would think it would be appropriate for the Indian Navy also to acquire, I mean, whatever's happening on the commercial side, that should happen on its own, where you have a consortium that comes together, with the government, a public-private partnership, where you have all the cable. Ideally, instead of each company investing on their own, because the requirements sometimes are few and far in between. It's better that you have a public-private partnership where all the cable operators come together and create a capability that you can use and so that the cost is defrayed of having a vessel of this nature and operating it. But it's not a bad idea if you ask me for the Navy. We've got certain ships like diving support ships, etc., which have got saturation diving capabilities, etc. We have big ROVs. That it's not a bad idea for the Navy to invest into these capabilities on a parallel track as well.
Commander Das, there's also that specter of Chinese spy vessels, survey vessels, all across the Indian Ocean region. They are, at any given point of time, there are one or two such vessels in and around the vicinity of Indian waters. Now, the Navy Chief has been asked this question several times, and he says that we are watching them all the time. But is there, beyond just watching them, what do you think India needs to do to address this threat of a near permanent Chinese presence around our waters? As you mentioned yourself, that these ships could well be mapping the underwater domains and, as they say, shaping the maritime battlefield of the future. What does India really need to do to address this threat?
I mean, there are two parts to this question. One is the Chinese are building their underwater domain awareness. I mean, they are doing what they have to do in their interest. So that is one part, what the Chinese are doing. So similarly, India also needs to do, what it has to do. I mean, our underwater domain awareness has to be of a different level. I'm sure, I'm not a government official anymore, so I will not be able to comment what the government is doing. I'm sure the Indian Navy and the various research organizations under the Government of India and Ministry of Earth Sciences are definitely doing a lot more, which may not be open to public, awareness. But at the same time, as a so-called expert in the underwater domain, I would like to say that this has got many layers, and it will require significant, effort, and it has to be a whole of nation approach. Capacity and capability building, I don't think we can expect the defense budget to do the heavy lifting for the capacity and capability building. Right. Even the scientific budget will not be enough. Even, our academia has to participate. A lot more people have to be part of this to build the ecosystem. They have to contribute. We have a lot of talent. I don't want to name organizations, but, Indian talent is contributing across the world. But probably what is missing is that we have not been giving them an institutionalized direction that, this is a priority of the nation, or this is what is important for nation building, and can we come together and do this. So underwater domain awareness has to be prioritized, and I think increasingly now the global community is looking at the underwater domain awareness in a more serious manner. So we have to also participate this in a very, very aggressive manner and be part of it as early as possible.
Absolutely.
Some of it which the government and the institutions are doing, strategic security cannot be discussed in the open, but there is a lot of non-military aspects which needs to be also, and particularly capability building has to be done. So that ecosystem has to be built, which has to be out in the open, where more and more people are engaged to participate.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Commander Das. You've outlined this threat and the kind of responses that we need to put into place to ensure that these are met with an all-of-nation approach. The capabilities and the capacities need to be built through an all-of-nation approach. That's the only way to tackle the problem that we are up against. But thank you very much, Admiral Khanna, Commander Arnab Das, for joining us today. Moving on from undersea cables to the world of espionage and deception. Recently, Bharat Electronics Limited suspended Deepraj Chandra, an engineer who was accused of leaking sensitive defense information to Pakistani operatives. Now, enticed by women online, Chandra unknowingly fell into a honey trap, exposing critical details about India's defense systems. was paid a mere 25,000 rupees in bitcoins. He compromised national security. But how do such honey traps, these digital honey traps, work? What tactics do foreign agents use to lure unsuspecting targets? More importantly, are you safe? Watch Honeytrapped, a News 9 Plus original that unravels the sinister world of digital deception and reveals how ordinary individuals are manipulated to betray their own country. Stay vigilant, protect yourself. Watch Honeytrapped, because knowing the truth might just save you.
Etc., we try to educate our people, but a lot of our journalists and a lot of our public professionals, etc., believe that they are not vulnerable, they have got nothing to hide. But what happens in something is, Mahira Sharma tries to approach me on LinkedIn, and if I find that she is connected to some famous editor whom I know, so my trust factor and the chance of me lowering the guard is very much there. So it is that one person, that one breach will lead to multiple other breaches. The trust factor is, oh, Mahira Sharma is friends with Sandeep Unnithan, my friend. Okay, maybe she's, I take the first, and she says, Sandy said, I may not check back because Sandy is a big, busy man. So that's how it starts off.
जहाँ पे भी आपको लगेगा, उनको लगेगा कि there is a person who is susceptible to women, who's making a lot of women friends on the social media. That is where they will make a spoof account and then start luring the person. I have also got in my Twitter account. I am only on the Twitter handle, and suddenly I have to literally report and block the particular handles. So one, the female will be there in a semi-nude. The beauty is, the AI works so well. How long have you looked at the photo? You just seen it and changed the screen. You've done a gaze. 2-second gaze, 3-second gaze, a minute gaze. Are you repetitively going back to that handle? Your weakness is more.
So the ISI is a professional intelligence agency, and since you said that their nation's motivation is, their race and deter for existing is to, seemingly defeat our nation and rest Kashmir. That is what they openly say, and they have created a vast infrastructure to defeat this nation. And being a professional organization, they look at multiple ways to infiltrate our nation, get military information, because we are a militarily superior power. So they run this operation, and the information age, it is but natural they will create, Mahira Sharmas and try to infiltrate.
Pradeep Kurulkar was the director of Pune-based Defence Research and Development Organization. The DRDO is India's premier military R&D organization developing crucial defence equipment, including strategic missiles. In June 2020, Kurulkar received a WhatsApp message from Zara Dasgupta. Zara claimed that she was a software engineer from UK. Then the video chats began. Zara began sending nude photographs and videos to Kurulkar. Soon, she began asking for top secret information on India's defence preparedness. Kurulkar passed data on the BrahMos cruise missile and test details of a yet to be revealed Agni 6 nuclear ballistic missile. The 58-year-old scientist was entrapped.
इस वक्त की बड़ी खबर, डीआरडीओ के डायरेक्टर प्रदीप कुरूलकर गिरफ्तार हो गए हैं। उन पर पाकिस्तान इंटेलिजेंस को इंफॉर्मेशन देने का आरोप लगा है।
Kurulkar was arrested by Indian police in May 2023. The woman who called herself Zara Dasgupta was operating from Pakistan, not the UK. There was another twist here. Kurulkar was convinced Zara was a real person. She had met him in Pune in December 2020. Police believe this yet to be identified woman was an imposter hired for the honey trap. The Zara Dasgupta Kurulkar was chatting with was a Pakistani intelligence operative based in either Karachi or Lahore. Pakistan's ISI runs an institute in Karachi to train women on how to honey trap Indians working at crucial government positions. Pradeep Kurulkar is their biggest catch till date.
They protect us at the borders, but are they safe at home? Last week, Colonel Pushpinder Bath and his 24-year-old son Angad were brutally assaulted by police officers in Patiala. Colonel Pushpinder Singh's wife, Jaswinder Kaur, has led protest marches demanding a CBI probe into this shameful incident. Now, the Punjab police has suspended the 4 policemen accused of assaulting the army officer. But there are larger questions. This is not an isolated case. Let me tell you about 3 other such recent cases. In December 2024, we saw an Indian army officer and his fiancée allegedly assaulted in a police station in Odisha after attempting to report a road rage incident. In August 2024, a soldier stationed in Kashmir was allegedly stripped, beaten and insulted in a police station in Jaipur. In all of these cases, Indian Army soldiers and officers were assaulted by policemen. Now, these incidents were ignored until they spread like wildfire on social media. Action was taken against the guilty officials, but only after public pressure was brought to bear. Now, army men have only their honor and respect. They have none of the sweeping powers with which the police operate in India's countryside. And when this power, this unchecked power, is used against the military, serious questions need to be asked. Why are such incidents happening with such alarming frequency? Why did the civilian leadership, both in the police and in the political class, wait for the situation to get out of hand before intervening? Now, these serious questions need to be answered. They need to be addressed by the political class and the police bureaucracy. We need to ensure that our military and their families will be accorded the highest honor and respect. Nothing can be allowed to tarnish the honor of our soldiers who stand guard on our frontiers or threaten the safety of their families back home. That's all we have for this edition of National Security Agenda. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more such installments.